So I'm pretty sure it's going to be a nice little conversation. So be ready to ask some questions. So we have first D.Savannah to my right, a native Houstonian, and the next R&B sensation. Oh, what? Me. She doesn't sound like me, I'll tell you that. D.Savannah was most recently on tour with Tank as a part of the R&B Money Tour and has a tantalizing catalog out now on all platforms. So make sure you follow her and stream her new single, Roll With It. Give D.Savannah a round of applause. Nice. Okay. And then now we have Alex Malebranche. Malebranche. All right. Malebranche. And Alex is a mental health advocate drawing from over a decade worth of tech and military experience. And after years at Amazon and AWS, Alex founded and raised VC capital as the solo founder of tech startup Plane Ahead before joining GitHub to help launch the company's first startup program. So I wanted to just first consider how they might approach cultivating resilience. And of course, what that story can then do for us and empower us as we move in our space of our mental health journey and how that might affect both our personal and our professional lives. So I will leave it to y'all. I'm going to come in as an audience member, but I will probably ask some questions too. But I'll let y'all take it away.
Hi, everybody. How y'all doing? So yes, I'm D.Savannah. I am a recording artist, singer, songwriter, entertainer. I perform around the city as well as having a catalog online. And I think what I want to bring to cultivating resilience is just talking about how you take your own skill sets and how you enter into the market and build a name for yourself with your business. I do this full time. And so I think just turning my music and my art into an actual business has been challenging, and you go through the ups and the downs of, am I good enough? Do I really know what I'm doing? Nobody taught me how to do this. I'm the first person in my family to even do this. Yeah, we grew up singing in church, but everybody works at the post office. So what am I doing trying to, go off and be an independent artist and reach these heights? So I'm excited to really dive into what that looks like for not only music, but then, just any business in the arts field.
I love that. And for me, I do my best to try and get around not just the city, the country, but the globe to talk about conversations very similar to this because of the level of importance it is to have a level of awareness. I think we say different things about wanting to care for ourselves. We may put in a couple of devices or activities that we say are feeding into what we need in order to kind of get to that space. But how often do we actually take time to understand what each of those building blocks actually looks like for us as individuals? So I look forward to having a conversation about some of those like nitty-gritty details, right? Some of the things maybe you might have overlooked in this conversation you're having within your own mind. You may have overlooked some of these foundational blocks. So I think we should start with a little bit of introductions. Right, I'm gonna let you go first, D.Savannah. You can tell us a little bit about the beginning of D.Savannah and today.
Okay. Well, I was born Daria Savannah. I go by D.Savannah because people always mess up my first name. They call me Daria, like the show on MTV, which I love, by the way, but that's not my name. My name is Daria. And so I grew up in church, like I said. I'm born and raised here in Houston on the north side of Houston. And we grew up in church, and my mom is this phenomenal singer, and I was like 6 years old, and she used to go and sing at all of these churches, and one day she was like, "Get up here, girl, you finna come sing with me." And I was like, I don't want to do that. That's not my ministry. And so growing up, she always got that she looked like Karen Clark Sheard. Do anybody know Karen Clark Sheard and the Clark sisters? Okay. And so Karen Clark Sheard and her sister and her daughter sang a song, The Will of God. And my mom was like, "You're going to learn this song. We're going to sing it." And so we did that. I have a picture. I wish I could pull it up, but it's of me and my mom singing, and I am crying crocodile tears. But it became a thing. And I think after that, at the age of 6 or 7, just seeing how people received my singing as a little girl, I'm like, okay, I might have something going on here. And so I just kept singing. I had a natural love for it. It's not like I didn't think I can sing or didn't want to sing. I was just very shy being in front of people. I was the only child at that point. I didn't get a sibling until like 8 or 9. So, singing and being in front of people, even maybe up until like 2 or 3 years ago, was terrifying for me. I just did church. I did community talent shows. I did a lot of American Idol, X Factor, The Voice, The Four, America's Got Talent. Every singing talent competition show you can think of, I've auditioned for. I've gotten to a lot of rounds. You'd be surprised. You think people just walk in there and then they're on TV. It's like 3 to 4 rounds. You got the janitors, the executive administrators. You have people in all different levels that are auditioning you until you get to the executive producers, and then so on and so forth. So there's been a lot of levels of that. It's been a lot of no's. I've used to walk out. My daddy would take me. We went from Texas to Louisiana to Alabama to Atlanta to all of these shows or these auditions. And his core memory is me coming out just in crocodile tears. And I'm crying and he's crying. And he's like, you want to go get some ice cream? And I'm like, yeah, but I'm finna go look up where they're going to be in the next city. So, and then I was at voice lessons that next Monday. So I've always had a bit of resilience and just, proceeding forward because I know my talent. I know what God has given me. I know that I'm good. And it's a different type of good. It's not like, oh, okay, you kind of good. It's like, no, I'm very humble, but I'm being very honest, which I think every artist or every entrepreneur should be. Every person, whatever your skill set is, you should be the most confident person in the room. And so with those competitions, I think they really built me up to be able to receive those no's. And when you get those no's, you have no idea why. You don't know if it's because you're too short, too fat, you don't have a good style yet, your hair is not long enough, your skin colors, you have no idea. You can't sing, can sing. You don't know what it is. They just say no, and they send you about your day. So if you can think even in the most simplest forms, if you're in a relationship and someone's just like, I don't want to be with you. It's like, well, am I not good enough? What is it about me so I can fix it? We just don't know. And so going through all of those things, eventually I was like, okay, forget that. I'm going to start working on my own music. And then I went to record my first single called Dirty Lover in 2018. And with that, I was like, okay, I can sing, I can get into the studio, but what next? So I got to be a manager. I have to promote myself. I have to market myself. I have to go out and network and talk to people. I have to be my own camera person. This is too much. I got to wear like 70 hats at the same time. And so all of those things, I kind of got discouraged for a while and was like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't have a team. Again, I'm the first one in my family that is taking the singing trait and the artistry and trying to do something with it. So they didn't know what to tell me, but just keep going. And so it was really difficult. And I think from then, I had released that single, and then I released an album of like 7 songs, and I took it down now because remarketing purposes. But I remember having that album, and I got a graphic designer, and the graphics were great, a photographer. We did the cover art, and everything was phenomenal. And I still didn't know how to market it. I didn't know what to do next. And I think over time, I just kind of chilled a little bit. And fast forward to the pandemic happening, and I think everybody was just like on their screens, on social media, marketing themselves. So I was singing a lot. But then I also started doing this daily thing of kind of short podcasts. Before podcast is what it is now. And it was called Daily Dose with D. And I would get on there every day. I had a little theme song, and it was very interactive. And I was talking about a lot of spiritual growth because during that time, it was a lot of things going on. And so a lot of people like to come into my space because we're talking about real things that were going on in the physical world, but also in the spiritual world. And for a second, I kind of got away from singing a little bit because lounges were closed, places were closed. I couldn't do anything but just sit online and talk about my thoughts and talk with other people about their thoughts. And that actually kind of grew. And in that, I think God had placed another thing in me to where it's like, you have a special kind of something. You have a love for people, even outside of music. So how do you use what you have? How do you do what you do? People are noticing you for not only your music, but your speaking and your daily dose with D's and just the intellectual thing around everything. And how are you going to use that? So I think from there, my confidence kind of boosted again. And once outside opened back up in 2021, that's when I really got the ground moving with the lounges. So I would perform at places like Alley Cat, Phil and Derek's, and it was so many places that were out at that time. I opened up for Calvin Richardson at the Humboldt Civic Center. All of these different little places, people just started hearing my name and was like, hey, we want you to come out and sing. And then I built a band. And then me and my band started performing and stuff like that. And that took a few years to kind of get together because it's like, I've always only just sang by myself. Now I have musicians. How do I get into that? So there's so many different levels that you go through. I know as an artist, for me, when I write and I think about what I want to do, I like to be by myself. But now you have to collaborate and be with other people, and you have to figure out what their styles are and all of those things like that. And so it's a constant journey of just learning yourself, learning how you operate with other people, and just trying to be the best that you can be. And so from then on, I started releasing more songs and really kind of getting my feet wet a little bit more. I was working at the University of Houston in the technology department doing social media work. And eventually they had to let me go because I had graduated and I was the team lead for the undergrad position. So they're like, girl, you've been graduated for like 3 years. So it's time for us to let you go. And I'm like, okay, well, let me just take artistry full time. Let me do this full time. And it was fun at first. But then the savings started running out. And I think as an artist who is the artist that I think I am, when you're kind of doing this work as gigs or hustles, it's great to get your name out there and the networking opportunities. But at some point, how is this business going to make money for me? The opportunities and the things that I'm doing, it's not equating to the bank account. I can't tell my rent, hey, I just opened up for this person, or hey, I just sang over here. Hey, I just released this song and it's doing really good. Hey, I have these amount of followers on social media. It just doesn't equate. And so then again, you go into that space of like, what am I doing? I need to go back to work. And then the job market is so bad now, it's hard to even get a job. And so you have all of these things all while trying to stay glued to your purpose and your passion. And it can get very discouraging. But I think if you hold on to who you are, to what you are, to the talent that you have and the skills that you possess, and then just the reassurance from your community, those things will absolutely allow you to move forward a little bit more. And I'm excited to hear about your steps, because it's easy to have that type of inspirational talk, but to actually have the practical steps to do it, that's where that's really needed. So I'll let you take over with that.
Thank you. No, that was awesome. I'll before I kind of get started on some of the things I was talking about, tell you a little bit about myself. So my name is Alex Malebranche, as was said before. The way that, so I used to be in the Army, as I kind of alluded to, the way that my soldiers, because in the Army, you only call each other by your last name. I would always have to say it's male branch, like boy twig. And so now that is stuck. That's a nickname of mine. So anything that you want to find me at Instagram or whatever, it's at boytwig, 2 G's. But that'll help you remember Malebranche. So I grew up one of 4 kids in Chicago to a single mom who immigrated from Haiti. And so through that process, I'm the third of the fourth kids. And, I think just being in that sort of situation helps to cultivate some resilience. You also have it modeled to you. And so like my mom, who worked 3 jobs at one point, would sleep in her car, including in the middle of the wintertime in Chicago, so that she could pick up overtime shifts. She would sleep in her car, go to the Lifetime gym to shower, and then go back to work. So you're just kind of seeing what that looks like and how that affects over time. And as I kind of was getting a little bit older and looking to, okay, I'm going to go to college. What am I going to do? Because of financial constraints, I actually joined the Army, and I did intel in the Army for 5+ years before finishing my degree and ultimately starting in tech. And I worked in tech for 10+ years now. Starting at Amazon, working at growth stage companies from like Series B to Series D, and then I started my own business about 5 years ago, raised venture capital, and now I'm helping to raise or to start a program at a large tech company called GitHub. So that's a little bit about me. I'm really interested to get the conversation started with just the definition of resilience. I think it's important to level set kind of what are we talking about. So I didn't remember the definition of resilience, so I'm going to read it real quick because I want to make sure we're all on the same page as far as what resilience is. So it says resilience is the ability to withstand adversity and bounce back from difficult life events. It involves mental, emotional, and behavioral flexibility. right? So how do we adapt and kind of bounce back from these things that are really difficult? And so you had mentioned a time for you where, as an entrepreneur in music, all right, you're getting the no's, but the why are you getting these no's, right? And so you talked about a little bit about what you and your dad did in terms of like the drive for doing something next and like bettering yourself, trying for the next time. I'm very much the same way. When you talk about cultivating resilience, like it starts with like the foundational explanation of like, okay, how do I start this process within me? And so, my girlfriend's sitting right here. She hears this word over and over because it's my favorite word ever, capacity. Anytime that I have a thought around like how much capacity I have, I look at like cups. So right now, just because the vase is right here, we're going to use this. Everybody and everyone's cup size is different, whether it's a short cup, a tall cup. Everyone has a capacity for which once the liquid goes over, right, you're done. You're too much, right? And so when I think about resilience or mental health, the first thing I think about is how much do I have left in my cup? And I think it doesn't really dawn on people to, one, have that visualization and then realize every single text, every single conversation, single emotion, every single activity, every single task fills the cup. And so if you sit down and think, okay, like I've got a water cup and every single text that I send out that day fills that cup. All right, now I've got to be really intentional about what texts I'm sending that day. So if there's something that is not going to serve me, I don't have the capacity for it. My favorite phrase, I don't have the capacity for that. And so it's really just having this, and I'd love to hear, like, if you have like a similar kind of reminder or visualization, or even what your thought is on that. But what is that thing that, as you're maybe sitting, but maybe it's through meditation at the beginning of the day, maybe it's through kind of your daily operations, if you will. How do you keep yourself mindful about how much you have left to give to people?
I think if I'm stressing or not, and I don't want to say stressing like stressing, but if it's just kind of a slight irritation with something, whether it's responding to a text, talking on the phone about something, going to scroll on social media when I know I need to read first, when I know I need to pray first, or when I know I need to jot down my to-do list, I leave it alone because I don't have the capacity for it. I'm a person who kind of goes with the wind a little bit, and lately I've noticed that I need a little bit more structure and routine. So I try to wake up, and the first thing I do is pray. I try to read a little bit of a book or maybe my Bible or what have you. And from then, I don't want to be on social media for the start of the day. So I'm reading, I'm praying, I'm writing down my to-do list of what I need to take care of and how I need to be productive during that day. If that schedule gets interrupted in any kind of way, I need to sit it to the side immediately. I think sometimes we get on our phones and we just get to scrolling and we get distracted for a little bit, and you look up and it's been 30 minutes. And if I can be a little bit more mindful to say, it's been 5 minutes, I still need stuff I need to do, let me put it down. So I think it's exactly what you're saying, is just being very present in the fact of knowing I don't have the capacity for this. I need to sit this to the side and focus on this. Even things like going out for a walk, being in tune with nature, or reading a bit of a book, or even if you do want to reward yourself and say, I'm going to take a break from all of this, I do want to scroll on social media for a little bit. Setting that time aside and just being very intentional with your time to release the stress, to make sure that you are filling yourselves. Because sometimes I think that we can't do that. We just pour into other people and take care of so many different things, and then we forget about ourselves. And then it just ultimately chips away at of our energy and overall productiveness. Yeah,
so a lot of people suffer from this term called time blindness. And that's just the inability to really kind of understand or have awareness around like how much time you're spending on something. And so I don't want this just to be a talk. Like there should be things that, we'll get to a question, I like it, that you can actually take from it. So there's an app called Screen Zen, and there are other ones as well. But what you can actually do is set parameters around certain apps that are unavailable at certain times, or if they are available, how many times you can access the app. So like twice a day, or if you access the app, how much time you can spend on the app. So there are times where like I'm going through my own thing, like I need to really focus on these projects I have. I'll set all social media. I can open it one time a day for 10 minutes. So I got to really think. Like if people are sending me things, I'm gonna be like, hold on, I don't have time for that right now. But I'm gonna get to it in this. I've got 8:50 is that time. I'm gonna open it that one time a day. So use things like that, tools that are set for your kind of used for your help or created for your help, so that you can assist yourself in some of these things that you may just not have the ability or foresight to be able to handle. I love the question. So let's go with a question. Let's mix it up a little bit. Hit me with a question.
I downloaded the app. I followed y'all on Instagram. Just
Hey.
so you know. Follow them on Instagram. So, in this space though, being a black woman and the word resilient, I'm tired. I don't want to be resilient. I don't want no more resiliency. We all in our soft girl era, soft male.
Hey, I'm in my soft girl era too. Let's be honest.
And so, but obviously resilience is just something that we will continue to accumulate being who we are in this world. And I know I'm just going back to the title of this session, the power of our story, and maybe now how to reappropriate that resilience that I might resent to something that can actually help me produce greater results. How do you leverage your resilience story to bring about results that refuel you in the space of alliteration?
That's good.
You mind if I start?
Go ahead.
All right. That's a great question. How do you, if I could just reframe it or just kind of say it again, how do you take what you've learned and gone through, repurpose it into something positive? Really, first, I believe it starts with evaluating the mindset. And so what I mean by that is a lot of things happen to us, and it really starts with how we view what has happened to us through which lens. So are we angry? Are we upset about that? Are we envious? Are we, I think a lot of people maybe skip over that part of like identifying what it is I'm feeling about it. I'll give you an example. You mentioned earlier around your singing, which in a previous life I used to sing, and I did American Idol one time, and you're right, there are a lot of steps before you even get there. I went through like three auditions before I even got to the executive producer.
Yeah.
I remember the day. For an entrepreneur, right, a version of that is when you're raising venture capital. Now, if you're not familiar with kind of that process, it's the getting outside investors money so that you can build your company. And the latest, as of February, of all the venture capital dollars, which I hope I'm getting this at least vaguely right, is about over $160 billion of circulated capital for venture capital in the last year. Under 0.5%, let me try that again, under 0.5% of that venture capital goes to founders of color. So I knew that, and that was last year when I did my company. It was like 5 years ago. It was probably like 8%, whatever. So you have that in mind, right? And there's a sort of like maybe a resentfulness around like, man, and I felt that, right? I would go to conferences or talk to other entrepreneurs and they'd be like, I just raised $5 million from my dad's uncle's cousin who's the owner of this hockey team, which is a real story. We just hired 10 people, including people in London. And I'm like, dude, you don't have a product even built. But it comes to that sometimes. And for me, my personal story to kind of land the plane is that, and I remember, and still to this day, I have a garage gym. I painted one of my walls, a chalkboard wall, and all the names are on it. I got 96 no's before my first yes. That list is in my garage at this moment on chalk. And so when I talk about like evaluating the mindset in that moment, I'm upset about it. But I start to keep this, at the time, it was just an iPad note of like who these people or these VCs were. And as it started to grow, the mindset or the thing that I would ask myself is, what am I not communicating to these people that I know that they don't? Right? So how can I adjust how I'm communicating in order to get my point across? Because as she said, you have to back yourself. If you're an entrepreneur of any kind, whether it's music, business, whatever, you have to be cognizant and aware of your own skills. And I thought, this is a good idea. Like, people told me it's a good idea. I know it works. Like, we're going to do this. I don't care who says no. And so it's about, all right, if I know that that's the case, then clearly I'm not communicating well enough. So changing my mindset from like a resentful or upset or angry or maybe even a victim mentality of, why does this person next to me have $5 million and they don't even have nothing? And I'm on the phone every day talking to people and they're like, this is amazing. I'm going to buy it. This is amazing. And I don't have any money. I had to sell my house to put money into my company. Another true story. So yeah, I think it starts with the mindset. And then when you're able to change that mindset and identify what it is that you're feeling, then you can try and come to a solution that's going to be a little bit more productive. And so for me, it was, okay, clearly I think I've got a good idea. These 96 people said no. I must not be communicating well enough. So let me go back to what it is that I'm talking about and how I'm talking about it, so I can do a better job of communicating more effectively. And that was, in turn, doing that iteratively, right, got me to a point where I was able to get venture capital. And, I'm still a little bitter, is as much money as all these other people, man? Maybe not, but, we move on. We still do it. But, yeah, that's kind of my answer to your question, if you will.
I think my answer to that would be, first of all, the word says that it rains on the just and the unjust. So sometimes we're going to have disappointments. We're going to get losses. We are not going to get what we want all the time. But I think it is exactly what you said as far as looking at that mindset and maybe not being so emotional about it, but at some point letting that logic kick in and say, okay, how can I restructure this? How can I use this for leverage to keep going, as you said? And I always look at what I wrote down for my life and what I thought I would be doing in this certain season. No, it didn't happen, but also it probably shouldn't have happened then. If I were to open up for Tank and be in these stadiums and do what I'm doing now at the age of 21, I don't know if I was supposed to be doing that. The mindset that I have, the maturity that I have, and the lessons that I've experienced now at 30, I just made 31 last week. So everything that I know, everything that I know now, I had to go through what I had to go through to get there. So using all of those things to look at it and say, what I have, the few things that I have now, I would have loved to open for Tank at 18. I would have never thought that would have happened. I'm not going to say I would have never thought that, because I do. I think more things are going to happen. But there's a place and a time for everything. And I think when you look at a situation and say, this didn't happen the way that I wanted it to happen, or I had different views for this and I wish I could have did this, shoulda, woulda, coulda. I know I'm big on that. It just wasn't supposed to happen then. And you have to look at everything as a lesson. This didn't happen, but what was the lesson that I got out of it? And I think when I look at that and then I get people that reassure me, I think reassurance is so important. Whether you're in relationships, whether you're in business, whether it's personal, through therapy, whatever it is, we need to be reassured that we're still making good strides. That even though the journey doesn't look like what we thought it was going to look like, or this business failed, or this opportunity failed, or that relationship failed, or whatever that was, it didn't turn out the way that I needed it to be, but what was the lesson that I could get out of it? So when I look at the lessons of those failures, that kind of gets me going again, because I didn't lose. If I can figure out what that lesson was and I can learn from that and move in a positive way, I never lose. So I think that mindset is what keeps me refueled. And I'm like, okay, I'm finna get in my bag and we finna keep going.
I think another thing to make sure to mention as important is purpose. And I think a lot of people may conflate purpose with interests. Purpose, at least for me, there's one singular purpose that you have or that you want to set for yourself in life. And all of those other things, that one purpose may have things that are connected to it, but typically you have one purpose. And so identifying what that purpose is and being really stubborn about that goal is really important. Stubborn about the goal, but adaptive to how you reach it. And so making sure that when you're going through this resilience, whatever it is, whether it's no's at auditions, no's for investors, physical resilience, whether you're, injured. Obviously, I was in the Army. I'm on disability for a number of things. There's all sorts of resilience, right? But there's this one purpose in your life, whatever that is, that you've identified, maybe through, if you're spiritual, that has been identified or shown to you, in which you want to accomplish. And so making sure to accurately identify that and being bullish about what it is that you need to do in order to make that happen. And sometimes what it is that you want to do is going to be in conflict with what you believe your purpose is. And that's a moment of mental resilience in which you need to do, you need to prioritize what your purpose is. And so making sure that you're being, again, I think there's a lot of honesty and transparency that you need to have with yourself when it comes to any conversation around mental health, resilience. As you go to the different talks today, Saturday, Sunday, it's going to require a lot of vulnerability, a lot of transparency. You're going to need to talk to yourself about, like, am I really doing these things right? Because chances are there's an opportunity for you to get a little bit better at a lot of these conversations, even though you feel like you're doing a really good job, and you need to be open to that. And be open to that in terms of, okay, where can I make adjustments in order to reach my purpose? So I think that's important to talk about as well. Let's do another question. Yeah, if we can.
We have about, I'm chilling, I'm gonna say, we got about 10 minutes left, and I think that there's something brewing in here from questions that we might have from the audience. And what I'd like to do is for you to take a moment, think what that very pointed question is. Think about, is it tangible? Is it something that I can walk away with, that I can practice? And so that also when they share their response, it can be punchy and pointy as well, just to ensure we're exchanging some really good value. Have that in your mind. One question as I give them some time to think about what their question is I like how, of course, we are looking at resiliency as how it might affect our, our mental well-being. What do you feel has been the one thing that you've done or you've practiced that has allowed you to not just endure, not just keep going? I heard your bullish thing, not just kind of persevere, but actually restore the well-being of your mental health.
I talk to myself a lot. Do we have anybody else that talks to themselves? I have full-blown conversations, okay? I am my best friend. I think tuning in, checking in with yourself and really just saying, hey, girl, so look, let's have a real heart-to-heart. What are we doing? What do we want to do? How are we feeling? Being very emotionally present with how you feel. I think we struggle with being vulnerable and transparent, which I understand this world is very scary and people don't always have your best interests at heart. But I think there is a gift and just a beautiful thing with being able to be emotionally open and vulnerable. And it starts with yourself. And so just doing those frequent check-ins that, making sure that you're aligned with what it is you need to do, what you failed at, what you don't feel so good about. I think I'm feeling a little depressed. I want to sit here and I want to binge watch a TV show. I'm going to do that for my mental health. Do that. I think that I'm sitting in the bed a little too long. I've been binge watching too long. I need to get up and move now. So get up. Sometimes I have to bully myself, like, I'm not going to say what I say because sometimes it's a little harsh, but I have to bully myself into get up and go to the gym. Go move your body. Like, even if it's just sitting on a treadmill for 20 minutes, just go sweat. Go release those endorphins. I heard Dr. Anita Phillips, she's like a psychologist, but then also she preaches and stuff like that. But she has a book out called The Grass Within. And she talked about how when we work out or even when we sing, that releases some type of chemical that makes us feel better. So move your body. Go take a walk around your apartment or living room or the block, down in the gym, or sing, no matter if you sound good or bad. Go to karaoke. Like, go do something that's going to release whatever it is you're feeling. Sometimes we we're so hardened by everything that's going on. And I'm a firm believer of, I'm going to enjoy this life. It stresses me out sometimes, but I'm going to go and enjoy this life. I got bills I have to pay. I got savings I have to do. Yes, but I'm not going to die miserable trying to pay these people I'm going to enjoy this life and be happy, responsibly, of course. So that's what I would say. Talk with yourself, check in with yourself, and make sure that you're not taking in everybody else's perceptions of what it should be, and make sure that you're aligned with what you think you should be doing in that moment.
Mine is really simple: therapy. I've been in therapy just about weekly for the better part of 9 years. And if you're not in therapy, even if you go monthly, it's necessary. It's not a nice to have, it's a necessary. So make sure you seek help when it comes to getting therapy. And there are plenty of ways that you can do it. Psychology Today, Therapy Den, there's a couple others. Honest to goodness, like, I'm so passionate about this, like, on my personal website, there's an area where there are resources to find a therapist, because it's important. So if you don't know where to go, boytwig.com, and then there'll be resources there for you to find therapy, but please find a therapist.
Any questions from the audience? Yes.
So you both have talked a lot about like your purpose as it relates to your careers and sort of monetizing that purpose. And I think that I felt like for a long time that my career was also in line with what my purpose was. And I feel like I've been reaching this place in the last couple of years where they're starting to feel at odds with one another. And I'm still very proud of what I do. But now my mindset is shifting over to how do I identify what my purpose is outside of this part of me that I've so long identified with. So do you guys have any tips or tricks for like kind of achieving that fulfillment outside of, I feel like millennials, we sort of we throw our whole selves into our careers, and at some point separation is.
Yeah. I know we're running low on time, but I really love this question.
Yeah, that's
So,
good. That's a really good question.
I'm going to go kind of quick, but please find me afterwards or later on this weekend, and we'll absolutely talk. My personal opinion, I don't believe that there's a professional purpose. I think typically your purpose is to do with you, yourself. My purpose, because I didn't have a dad, is to be like the best dad ever. I'm a single dad. I've got 2 kids, 2 girls, girl dad all the way. And anything that I do, whether it be personal, professional, whatever it is, it revolves around how can I be the best dad to these 2. And so that helps me break a lot of ties when let's say one job is offering me a lot of money and one job not so much, but the one that offers me a lot of money, I got to travel everywhere. It doesn't matter. That's a tiebreaker. And so I would say identify your personal purpose first. And then secondarily, when you're trying to assimilate that or work on how that translates into a professional goal, I believe, again, personally, jobs are just a set of skills. They're not titles. Like, we look at them as titles, like on LinkedIn. Oh, this person, actually, me and D.Savannah were having a conversation right before we hopped on. She said, oh, I've always wanted to work in tech. I said, why can't you work in tech? I went to school for communications. Well, tech is, the only technical part of tech is software development. I am not a software developer, but I work with a lot of people in tech, and I have for a number of years. It's a set of skills of being able to critically think, assessing different risk, understanding how you work under pressure. And so when you talk about how can you maneuver your purpose into something professional because you're starting to feel like those things are becoming at odds, identify what it is that you as a person are good at, identify how those skills can be of service to something that you enjoy. So whether it's like fashion or tech or every single skill is transferable, every single one. So there's nothing that you, and maybe this is like an entrepreneur, on my soapbox, but there's nothing that you won't be able to do I'm in tech. I know nothing about clothes. I'm starting a streetwear line. I thought it was going to take 2 months. It has now taken 8. And I still haven't launched it yet because it's taking a lot longer than I thought. I'll figure it out, but it just takes a while, and I'm passionate about it. So I don't mind that it takes a little bit of time. So I think first, ID your personal purpose. Then after IDing your personal purpose, that it can act as your tiebreaker, then assess what skills do I naturally have, and then how can I apply those skills to something that I enjoy or that I have passion for. And then you'll find it a lot easier to make decisions and cultivate relationships in that space. And if you need or want help in that, then I would love to be a resource for you. That took a lot longer than I wanted it to. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think you answered that perfectly. Just keep listening to yourself. And until you don't feel that conflict anymore, if you feel it decreasing and decreasing, you're going in the right direction. Yeah.
All right, I believe that we are at time. Let's give Alex and D.Savannah a big round.
Thank y'all.
Thank y'all.